Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John. In today's video I continue my ongoing series of videos relating to the upcoming Monopoly Events convention For the Love of Horror, which is due to take place in October 2024 in Manchester, England. So come along with me as in this video I talk about Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Now at the time of recording we have 33 confirmed guests with about 3 weeks to go until the con takes place, and as I said in my Evil Dead video, out of those 33 guests in attendance there are 6 reunions taking place at the same time. Evil Dead, The Thing, Night of the Demons, Halloween 1, Halloween 3 and Tucker and Dale vs Evil. Now I have to confess Tucker and Dale vs Evil was a film that I had never seen and if I can be so bold I had no intention of seeing. It was a film that I had heard a lot about and a lot of positive things, but I always heard the inevitable comedy horror always linked to it, and I'm always a little bit dubious about comedy horrors because I think there's a lot of good horror films out there that have a dark sense of humour to them, or a very dark satirical humour to them, such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Evil Dead and Reanimator. But when I always hear about full comedy horror, I just think it's a blend that just doesn't ever quite match up. There's very rare occasions, and so for example Shaun of the Dead is a really good example of a perfect balance between comedy and horror, but those kind of films only tend to come around once every decade or couple of decades, and as a horror fan I'm always kind of looking for more of the horror than the comedy, so I've always stayed away from it. Now it has to be said, when I started this range of videos I had plans to meet 20 guests and have 4 photo ops. As a result of filming commitments and factors outside of people's control, unfortunately 2 of the guests have cancelled. It's inevitable, it happens every year, happens at every con, you just can't help it, you move on. But once that money was refunded and I was looking at my schedule, I was in a situation where I kind of thought, well, do I meet 18 people and get the 4 photo ops, which is a pretty busy day, but not the busiest I've ever had, or is there something else within the rest of the guest panel? So out of the 18 of my 33, of those 15 left, is there anybody in there that will take a punt on? Because in previous years, and one of the things I really like about For the Love of Horror is their introduction for me to films that I would never consider looking at. So another example is Fright Night. Until 2022 I'd never considered watching Fright Night or Dog Soldiers, for example, but when other guests cancel and you look at the lineup, you just think, well, actually, you know, these people are here. If I can get the copy of the Blu-ray cheap enough and a decent edition that's worth getting signed, why not take the punt? And this year has continued that trend with me looking at the schedule and thinking, okay, there is a trio of people relating to Tucker and Dale versus Evil. We have in attendance Alan Tudyk, who plays Tucker, we have Tyler Labine, who plays Dale, and Katrina Bowden, who plays Allison. Now, having watched this film, as a very mild spoiler, I've actually made the decision to meet Alan and Tyler, Tucker and Dale. There's no disrespect to Katrina whatsoever, however, obviously money getting closer to the con, 3 weeks away, gets that a little bit tighter, and I just thought, well, I will commit to 20 guests, and if on the day I have cash available or the opportunity, perhaps I'll get 21 or even higher on the day. So I wanted to have a commitment of 20 guests going into this con, and having watched Tucker and Dale vs Evil, there is no way I am leaving Manchester without meeting Tucker and Dale, and I'll explain to you why. So with spoiler warnings now in full effect, Tucker and Dale vs Evil is very much a movie of 2 sides. On one side you have the very generic, very cliched Friday the 13th-esque group of college kids who are on their way to the woods for a weekend of drinking, smoking and sex. On the way they nearly have a car accident and a truck drives past with 2 menacing looking hillbillies in it. These college kids all stare at these 2 very terrifying looking hillbillies and obviously talk about the fact that, oh my god, did you see those guys? What we then realise is that we join those 2 hillbillies in their truck and they are Tucker and Dale. 2 best friends, 2 hillbillies who are the nicest people in the world. Dale is a little bit down on his luck because he thinks that because he's slow and stupid, he can't ever get a girl. And Tucker, despite his best efforts to build up his best friends, is a little bit more interested in a piece of real estate he has just purchased, an old cabin in the woods. These two groups collide at a gas station in which Tucker and Dale, whilst waiting presumably for their car to be gassed up or something, they see the college kids show up. Tucker, in a moment of friendship, gives Dale a little bit of a pep talk and tells him to get over to that girl and have a chat with her, because Dale is very interested in the girl Alison, played by Katrina Bowden. However, when Dale walks over with a scythe in hand for reasons that are never really explained, his panicking and his inability to talk to women comes across as the terrifying cliched hillbilly killer, so naturally all the college kids run away and tell him to get lost and leave them alone. So Dale, now once again having his pride knocked, goes back to Tucker, who says, "Oh well, don't worry about it," and they go to the cabin. In theory, this is the last time these people should meet each other, but obviously the film would be very short if they did that. So whilst those kids are in the forest, one of them tells a great story about how 20 years ago there was a series of hillbilly murders in the woods, and a group of college students, not unlike themselves, were all brutally massacred by hillbillies. Meanwhile, in the same woods, Tucker and Dale have arrived at their cabin, which looks like it's something that's wandered straight out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Evil Dead. They're really happy and really excited because they're going to have a boys' weekend. Forget your worries, forget the women, forget everything else. Let's get this new house up to scratch. They bought it as is, so when they walk in, there are bones hanging from the ceiling. There are serial killer-esque style newspaper reports all over the wall, but they don't think anything of it. They just think that the place is a bit run down and needs a little bit of TLC. So Tucker and Dale get to work sorting it out. We then cut to Tucker and Dale on the lake in a canoe, both with beers in hand, fishing. They're just enjoying their trip, having a great time and toasting each other. Meanwhile, on the other side of the lake, the college kids have now decided to go skinny dipping and having a little bit of play around in the water. Unbeknownst to both sides, the college kids and Tucker and Dale, Alison, for reasons that are never really explained, is in between them and decides to climb up on a rock. Once she starts stripping down to her bra and pants, Dale, being the bashful guy he is covering his face saying don't look, and of course Tucker is eyes wide open with a beer in his hand enjoying the show. However, when Alison sees Tucker and Dale in the bush staring at them, she naturally screams and falls into the water, banging her head and obviously knocking herself out. Tucker and Dale immediately rush to her aid, pull her out of the water and pull her into the boat with the intention of taking her back to safety. However, the college kids then, when they hear the scream, look over to see two very terrifying looking hillbillies pulling their friend into the boat in her underwear and driving off. So they all scatter and run off. So naturally Tucker and Dale can't take Alison back to her friends because they don't know where they've gone. They've just all run off. So Tucker and Dale have the great idea to return her to the cabin. Now at this point the college kids decide that they need to go out for revenge. They need to arm up, get the axes, get the crowbars, get the kitchen knives, and they need to find Tucker and Dale, these two murderous hillbillies, and they need to get their friend back. This is juxtaposed with the fantastic idea of the fact that Alison wakes up having been nursed to hell, bandaged round her head, with a wonderful breakfast courtesy of Dale, and he comes in and explains, don't you worry, we're going to get you back to your friends. Tucker's just outside sorting out some wood, and as soon as you've had your breakfast, I promise we're going to get you back. So Alison immediately becomes friends with Dale, and the two begin to have a little bit of a romantic relationship. Neither quite obviously achieving it because Dale is too scared to make a move on Alison, but Alison also is a little too confused to realise that actually, there's a little bit of romance into the air. So having started this little bit of a friendship romance between Alison and Dale, what neither of them realise is that outside is Alison's college friends who are preparing to attack the cabin, go in and presumably save Alison from these hillbilly murderers. At one point, obviously there's a little bit of a discussion because as always with college kids in these kind of situations, none of them actually want to go in, so there's a little bit of a back and forth about who's going to go, but ultimately one of the boys decides that he will be the one to go. As he approaches the property with the intention of saving Alison, this is where for me the film really takes off in terms of the premise and what you need to know. So if you've never seen this film, for me this is the scene that if you just want to YouTube one scene to get a flavour of what this movie is about, this is the scene. So this boy, college kid, starts approaching the property with the intention obviously of getting his friend Alison out, but meanwhile round the back Tucker is sawing wood, just completely completely normal, no problem, just wants to get a little bit of fire and kindling and things like that, but he accidentally chainsaws a beehive, or a wasp nest it should be said, and of course all the wasp bees come flying out at him and start attacking him, really badly stinging his face. And of course, naturally, chainsaw in hand, he starts screaming and spinning around and running around because obviously he's being attacked by a wasp nest. So what then happens is he starts trying to run away from the wasps. So we cut back to the front of the cabin, and this guy walks forward to then see Tucker, the hillbilly murderer from his perspective, flying around the side of the cabin, spinning around with a chainsaw, straight out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, screaming and freaking out. And of course all the college kids naturally scatter in fear. Tucker is completely unaware of the fact that this kid is here, and the kid is running away from Tucker. So this amazing image of Tucker running and screaming and spinning with all these wasps attacking him, just behind this kid. Now this kid and Tucker then have this moment where Tucker actually gets past the kid. So it goes from a chase scene between a killer and a victim, and you then realise Tucker and this lad then see each other, and Tucker naturally just goes off. He doesn't even think about it, he just runs off screaming, and then this kid, completely unaware of his surroundings, runs chest first into a splintered branch and impales himself and kills himself. So of course when the college kids regroup and start walking around, they then find their friend impaled on a tree, and of course assume that Tucker has just killed him. Meanwhile, Tucker returns to the cabin, hollering at Dale, saying, "Didn't you hear me? Couldn't you hear me out there? I'm getting attacked." Face completely upset with all these wasps. He's getting beer, tipping it all over his face, and he's saying, "One thing I'll tell you now is that girl's friend was out there. I think he must have been allergic or something, because he was running so much faster from those wasps than I was." So instantly, from a comedic perspective, it's just and I don't want to say too much more because like I say, you need to watch this film, but just this fantastic scenario, the comedy of the misunderstanding of these two worlds is just comedy gold. There is a good amount of gore, there's a good kill count in it, and one of the funniest, even though it's a very dark subject matter, one of the funniest moments of course is because you would assume, well, if Tucker and Dale are innocent, why is it that all these kids who end up getting killed, why aren't they questioning it? They do question it, and Tucker has this amazing realization that all these kids are actually out, and they've either gone, something's set them off and made them go mad, or he then thinks it's some kind of suicide cult. So he then talks about how him and Dale need to protect Allison from her friends because her friends have clearly lost their minds. So you have this fantastic situation. What I love about Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is the inversion of the concept. Rather than it being the hillbilly killers attacking the kids, it is the kids actively going out to kill these hillbillies, which would be a murder of innocents. However, accidents, comedic situations take place, and these kids end up picking themselves and each other off, with a confused and totally bewildered Tucker and Dale in the middle, thinking it's some kind of murder-suicide cult. It is really funny, and I strongly recommend you watch this film. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is a fantastic movie, and if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. It is a perfect comedy horror. The balance between the horrific and the comedy, I don't think, as I said, other than Shaun of the Dead, can be rivaled. Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine are on my list of people to meet. No offence to Katrina Bowden, it wasn't I didn't want to meet her, but as I've said probably earlier in the video, money is getting tight so close to the con, so I'm electing to guarantee that I meet those two by pre-ordering their signatures, and then I'll pick up Katrina's on the day if there is time and I have the money available. One thing that I do also just want to recommend to people as well is, it may be on YouTube obviously, but it's on the Blu-ray, so either way give it a look, is if you haven't already done this, once you have watched Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, either for the first time or if you're watching it again as part of your horror preparation for the con, there is a fantastic special feature called Tucker and Dale Are Evil, in which what they have done is take the scenes from the movie from the kids' perspective, and they have cut out all of the lines between Tucker and Dale. It's only 15 minutes, but it gives you the true perception from the college kids' perspective. I think when you watch Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, it becomes very quick what the joke is obviously these are nice guys in the wrong place and the wrong time with these college kids who have the wrong idea, but then they actually do go to the trouble of giving you this 15-minute video to to actually give you this situation where you sit there and think, well, actually, if I was one of these kids, I would completely buy into the fact that I think these are hillbilly murderers. So I do recommend giving that a look if you haven't already seen it, because that is worth its time in itself. As I say, it's 15 minutes, but don't watch that unless obviously you've watched Tucker and Dale versus Evil, because as I say, it only works, I think, once you're in on the joke. So I think that's going to do it. One thing, as I said before, about For the Love of Horror, which I'm a really big fan of, is the fact that they introduce these different films and different properties that you may never have heard of, or you may have never had the inclination to watch. As I said, if it hadn't been for those guest cancellations, I never would have given Tucker and Dale versus Evil a look. But after the constant positivity from it, and people saying to me, you've never seen Tucker and Dale, I would have thought you of all people would have seen Tucker and Dale. I bit the bullet, I purchased a copy, and no regrets whatsoever. I am so pleased to own this film. I am so excited to meet Alan and Tyler. I cannot wait to talk to them, because from what I've seen, they're genuinely nice guys, and they're genuine advocates of the movie as well. It's really cool, yet another reunion from For the Love of Horror, so cannot wait. Less than 3 weeks to go. This is not, by the way, perhaps the end of my retrospective videos for the road to For the Love of Horror. As I've said, I have got 20 guests on my list to meet, and I think at the time of recording this video will mean 17 out of those 20 have been done. I do have one that I definitely intend to do a video on, and then the other 2 guests I may do a wrap-up video, but I haven't quite decided yet. I will be vlogging on the day, so if you do see me, please do come up and see me. I will be flittering about very quickly. Obviously 20 signatures and 4 autographs means a very busy day. I think at the time of recording, we are getting to the stage where this event is nearly sold out. I did put a post out within my video to show that For the Love of Horror had confirmed there was less than 100 afternoon Saturday tickets coming. So I genuinely think that this event is going to be a sellout, but it is every year. So if you're still on the fence, if you still haven't decided whether or not to go, you are running out of time. So until the next video, stay scared.
That's a good idea, Dale. Oh, howdy ho, officer. We've had a doozy of a day.